crazy. The amount of talent and just financial mastery during my class that session. Like to my right, there's a gentleman who's going through the process of becoming a U.S. state court attorney. He's currently an EA, which is, an enrolled agent. That's like the highest IRS designation they give out. So he's taking this course, and he was telling me that his mom has already taken and been using it, and his mom is making millions. I was like, that's cool. The dude to my left, he is a retired colonel from the Army who became a CPA for the Department of Defense. So everybody was like that. I was just like, okay, these are signs that I'm in the right room.
Right, 100%.
And when everyone's asking, how long did it take you to make your first million? And I'm like, oh, I already made it. It's just the check's in the mail, baby. It just hasn't landed yet.
Right. So I was just having a conversation with one of my clients because they are a husband and wife duo. And the wife is getting ready to exit her current job. And she was talking about the mental dilemma of going and working for somebody else or investing in the business itself.
Right.
And it's like the reality is the world is fucked up. The economy is fucked up, and it's going to get worse before it get better. So the idea of not prioritizing increasing the value of asset, well, first acquiring assets.
Let's start there.
And allowing them to appreciate. When it comes to working for somebody else, that is an asset that you have a very small stake in, but that small stake don't show up on your balance sheet.
No, it doesn't.
It's about how are we actually increasing the value of this asset that we're sitting and looking at right here, because 250,000 sitting in your bank account, that same 250,000 ain't gonna be the same 250,000 in 6 months, and it ain't gonna be the same in a year, because that's gonna go down. But the putting the value into an asset, we having a different conversation here.
Right. That kicks off any sort of dividends, then you start having a double dip where that future asset could be worth more and it's been paying you the whole time. So that way inflation's not eating away at your wealth. That is a major conversation that we need to have a lot more in our communities. There's nothing wrong with having a good job. I think it's really dope to have a good job, have a great business, and have a bunch of investments.
Bro, I'm like knee deep in building out these internal processes for how I do what I do. And it's crazy because, so I told you, damn, it's been a month now, over a month since I virtual assistant. Yeah, I'm now on my third.
Hoo-wee!
I'm not talking about like scaling. I'm talking replacing.
Oh, so that's a beautiful struggle. Let me adjust my excitement. So you're in the process of finding the right fit for your business.
Well, more important than that is getting the processes in place. It's like for real, because we've had processes before, but this is different because what this VA is doing is taking a lot of the core components of what I bring to my clients and making it a measurable process that when I hire my first in-person person here in Colorado Springs, instead of me asking them to perform certain tasks, I'll say, I need this done and follow this checklist, and it should be done within this period of time based on the process that's being developed right now. The two VAs that preceded the current one that I have, there were building blocks internally for the accountability measurements that makes all of this stuff scalable. Because again, I can't just go and find a me. I put in a lot of work to become who I am, and it was intentional.
Yes, sir.
So I can't just find somebody like a me, but
Yeah.
I can build multiple me's through this framework. So it's just working out all of the bugs, and that's what every day has been.
The E-Myth revisited in real life. The thing that I immediately thought of when you made that statement was, everybody is self-made, but only the successful will admit it. You and I both know it takes a team to make anything happen. You need other references. Who was it? Was it Einstein or was it Sir Isaac Newton that said, "If I've seen further than others, it's because I stood on the shoulders of giants"? That's powerful stuff. But like you said, we can't just recreate a you. And for everyone that's watching this episode, your unique fortitude and skill set and drive is a rarity. And that's why you're watching this channel. So for us to go out and just find another you is going to take a lot of time, energy, or money, or a combination of the three. So instead of doing that, let's learn how to harness your essence in different places in these SOPs. So that's really what we're exploring right now.
It's happening in real time, because when it comes to hiring my first person here in the Springs, to expect for them to immediately be providing value, it's just not realistic. But what I can do is have a framework that pretty much creates the same type of vetting process that I would imagine happens at an organization like Chick-fil-A, where those employees, they don't come out of their mother's womb with a my pleasure. Like, these are all things that are conditioned and trained into these folks. So before they are ever trusted to front face a customer, you best believe there is some vetting that has to happen prior to. So I imagine, they may give them a checklist and say, all right, I need you start in the bathroom, just because we need to know that you can follow instructions.
Yes.
So once you do that, all right, and we see you do that for a week, all right, well, now we're going to take you from there and we're going to put you on the fries. Because not only are you following instructions, but if you don't follow the instructions, there's a more immediate effect. So, like, let's see how that, and all the while, walks in the bathroom, I don't ever want to hear a thank you. You saying my pleasure while you clean the bathroom. Because when I put you in front of the customer, that's tried and tested. It's conditioned. That's who you are now. Like, that had been developed into you.
Yeah, well, it's so unique. Like, when you think about Chick-fil-A, sandwiches ever, the best food ever, like, no, it's good, but it's nothing crazy. But the thing that completely sets their brand apart from others is their hospitality. And that's such a unique spin when you really think about it and sit on the fact that they're like, we want to make someone feel like a VIP, even though they're spending $11.29 to come through and get some fries. My pleasure. I like how you said it the first time. You said my pleasure. Like, you almost said it like you were from Philly. Like, my pleasure, bull. Stay dangerous. On the tech side, man, that we're talking about SOPs today, because that is a amazing asset, and SOPs keep coming up over and over and over again. I want to say at least 2 hours of one of the days of my workshop was about SOPs, and it wasn't necessarily about creating one to do what we do. It was about helping business owners understand that an SOP, having a process, is actually intellectual property. And intellectual property can be moved to other organizations, such as You can create an LLC. For example, one of our workshop days was on NIL, which is name, image, and likeness. All these high school athletes are getting paid crazy money. I met a guy there who's purchased 21 planes. What he does is he leases the planes to these players. So like 8 players will get into a group. They'll put their money together, and with the private jets, they can fly mom, dad, and their girlfriend and their aunt to the games because now they've become so big they can't fly home. And what we do, one of the things we do is move that NIL into like an LLC or a trust so it can be taxed completely differently. So it can be tax deferred if that's what they want to do, or we could just really, really, cut down on their tax liability. So it's beautiful, brother. Everywhere I go, there's remnants of your business in my business. It's unescapable.
That's actually something that I'm looking forward to. Once I get to a certain monthly revenue, you and I are going to sit down to do
your plan,
entity plan,
mm-hmm.
because I need the right type of trust. And what you just shared with me, like now that gets incorporated into it as well, because I knew that the bullseye processes would be separated from the LLC that's operating, but it being its own entity is news to me. So we're going to sit down and I'm going to break it down like what I want, and then you let me know what I need to do to put it all in the place to include the healthcare plans and the healthcare insurance and I'm sorry, the life insurance rather.
Yes.
And
And
all that.
it might, we might have a beautiful structure of different hierarchies of different entities. Like right now, I'm working on a trust system for a client where initially they just wanted to get a trust because they wanted to protect their home from a frivolous lawsuit that they see coming. They see it coming quickly. All right, here's the steps. Let's get you an irrevocable trust. We don't do revocable trust here, kids, because they don't have any standing, any willpower. It's a pass-through entity. Just like we wouldn't put something really, really special in just an LLC. 48% of the time in court, these get pierced. So it's so easy to pierce that veil, and there's no distinction between you and the asset, and you end up losing the asset. So with this client, we started off with an irrevocable trust. We got it the EIN, and then we quit claimed the deed of the home and some of the other assets that we're putting in there into this new trust. They were super excited about it. It was a quick process. It only takes maybe 6 days to get the whole thing done. And it seems like the person, their legal team on the frivolous lawsuit side, they've already decided to drop the case because they can't find certain said assets linked to the client. And this is a great time to give you a disclaimer that I'm not a lawyer or an attorney. I am a certified tax and business advisor. But until you sign on a dotted line and we have a LOI or LOE, I am not yours. So what we want you guys to do is really seek out research from other professionals, line up with other professionals, or do your own research. And that does not include Googling. You have to be scholarly. Back to what I was saying. As soon as the opposition's team saw that said assets were not client's name, they dropped the case. And I've had this happen about 4 or 5 times over the last 2 years. And it's funny how simple it is. I mean, you need to have good timing to be able to get the stuff done. But these irrevocable trusts, you have the right type of irrevocable trust. The only entity that can open it is the Supreme Court. And how often do you think they're taking cases as frivolous as this? They got a lot more to deal with, right, brother?
Right. Absolutely.
So expanding on the SOP portion, because I see what you're doing and what you're building. What is the vision over the next 6 months with building these different processes here as you're building your team out?
Like we're gonna sit down and do the whole entity structuring piece to make sure that all of that is organized and protected the way that it needs to be. A part of the processes that are being designed is also the lead generation piece with the internal framework that delivers the same consistent quality and return to my clients. Lead generating infrastructure that keeps that flowing. All of those processes are the intellectual property that gets protected under
Yes.
its own set of. So I don't know how all of that works, but when we sit down, I'll get a better understanding of it and getting all of that stuff in place. Once all of that stuff is in place, then again, it's going to be pulling the trigger, measuring the results, and growing. So
Yes, sir. It is
when
growth season.
I can't go out and find myself, but what I can do is build a system design and a team where all of the pieces that I bring end up being delivered through multiple mechanisms that come together. And that's what's being designed right now. The thing that's so cool about it is when I started consulting back in 2018, the first firm that I worked for, a few months into that tenure, I got poached by another consulting firm. And when I started with them, I'm looking at the biographies of the founders of the firm that poached me, and they started with the company I got poached from. So then I'm looking at all of the processes, and I'm like, this is the same shit. Like this is literally the same process that we're doing with client that we're installing in clients' businesses. But these were bigger company, 500 or more employees. So the system is. I'm like, this is the same shit. So over there, I was getting paid W-2. Over here, I was getting paid 1099 and getting paid way more. And I didn't understand because management consulting is different than business consulting. So when I was getting that big check doing management consulting, and I didn't know about business at that time. So like I fumbled on the tax side and all that type of stuff, just not knowing back then how to really leverage all of that. But the poachers stole from, and I'm like, okay, so that's interesting. Then I moved to my third consulting firm.
Yes.
And the third, well, that firm was actually business consulting. So with small businesses, and it's the whole plethora, it's all of it. Well, when I'm at the point where I'm not going to much longer, and I wasn't sure if I was ready to go independent and do my own thing yet or not. So I'm like, all right, let me put my feelers out to see what's going on with these other firms. So I reached out to another one, and like they heard all of it, because what I do is the same thing that they do, and it was like,
Yo.
we can't even touch you until you have been like officially separated from them for 2 years, because the firm that I resigned from sued the shit out of the firm that I applied for some of the same shit. So
Wow.
in seeing that, how on the management consulting side, they stole, and that was just like a little cesspool of, and then on the business consulting side, like it's the same thing. And I'm here building out my entire framework based on how I see business. That's bullseye. It's like how I see business and how it all comes together. But these frameworks are being designed in real time. I am building the plane as I'm flying it. So it's a different kind of experience because, again, I'm not relying on a process that I stole from a company that I came from or worked for.
And you know, the beautiful thing now that you have the knowledge, you're building these systems, not only it's got to be so meta for you to be building systems for your client while your system to build systems for your clients. That's got to be a crazy experience in itself. That's some Inception, Leonardo DiCaprio. You know, is the spinner still spinning type of stuff, and you know, you're in a great position now because you're going to be able to do some really, really cool stuff with the SOP that you met. And I know how meticulous you are. So that's why I'm going to say, you know, a thing that you're going to want to look into this tax season is definitely getting Section 179. That's your research and development credit. That R&D credit is something serious, and most business owners don't know they qualify for it because they assume you have to be in a lab. You got to be doing some Dexter's lab level stuff. You have to be doing some serious things out in the field. But we already said earlier that an SOP is intellectual property. So anything that you're doing to further your intellectual property could put you in a position to get this really, really great deduction. And it's just a credit. So we love credits when it comes to the tax world. Deductions are cool, but they're 65 cents on the dollar, 55 cents on the dollar, 40 cents on a dollar. I prefer credits because when we credit things, that's where we can get leverage, where we can say, okay, $10,000 went into this and $100,000 in tax credits came out of it. That's something that you'll take all day long and 15 times on Sunday, right?
Damn right. You said Section 179?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Like I said, man, we gonna sit down and do the actual strategizing for how my whole umbrella piece needs to be lined, because we're talking about multiple entities that are wrapping up under different umbrellas or the same umbrella, or I don't know how all that stuff works, but I know you do. So
Yeah, we got options, brother. We can draw it up to make it nice and smooth if you want. I have had clients in the past that are, I guess I would say, hyper vigilant, where we separated everything on multiple layers. Real estate part of their portfolio. Every individual piece of real estate got put in a different entity, and then the cash flow from each piece of real estate went into a different entity. And then those were housed, of course, by irrevocable trust, but they were different irrevocable trusts for each one. So it ended up being like this big architecture where if I held it up and turned it sideways, someone would come out and say, yes, the Romans did learn from those in Timbuktu. You know, it looks like a hieroglyph. So many shapes and colors and sizes, and we can definitely do that. Or, you know, sometimes a business owner will look at the risk and they'll say, you know what, for this amount of risk, I'm willing to have certain assets together up to a dollar limit. It might be $10 million. It might be 5 million. It might be 1 million. Every person's different. And let's just split, and then we can always go back and change things later. Yes, we can, even with irrevocable trust. If you're working with someone who does not know how to move assets in an irrevocable trust, you're working with a rookie and you need to run.
And that's the thing. I understand the forces that are at play in the big scheme of things. So I need the layers of separation and collaboration and all that, because we as a people do not have enough folks that understand assets and are actively working in the space, not just talking about it, but actually putting points up on the board, like real wealth generating activities. Like,
and not what worked 40 years ago, what works today with today's tax code. with today's banking rates. Man, dude, I met someone the other day at a wealth event, and he's still telling people that they need to buy their house in cash. If you don't get out of here with that leave it to beaver sort of nonsense hoopla, it's inconceivable, especially if you're talking to somebody that is under 50 years old, over 50. I can't really make a case for you buying a house cash unless you have a specific reason and parameter that's in a whole game plan, which there are some that exist. I can't see you buying a house with your own cash. Why would you do that? And sometimes it's a simple conversation about money, where it's like, look, I know you can get a pretty good loan right now. You're a veteran. Let's say you get your VA loan at 6%, and you're planning on putting all this money down so you can buy down that percentage even more. I'm like, okay, cool. Let's see what that looks like. And, the first couple years of being a homeowner, you're still renting your house. You're just renting it from the bank. And real estate people always get mad when I say that, but I'm like, it's a negative arbitrage. You're not making any money. None of your money is actually going to principal. It's all going to interest. What does that sound like? Renting. So your first couple years, you're renting, right? So if you're renting, sometimes we got to look at the numbers and say, look, what if instead of putting a colossal down payment down that all goes to interest, we take that money and we put it in an asset that we believe in, or maybe we stack a couple together. We get a good trust. We get a really liquid cash value life insurance policy. We fund it up, and then we have that life insurance policy loan against the cash value in there to buy a really good asset. And then all together, this whole group is doing 25% a year, 30% a year. Now your money is growing faster than your interest rate of paying your debt. So now your assets can actually pay the debt down. Like that's the conversation I feel like we need to have more often. We got to buy assets to pay debt down. And that's when you have fun. When I used to hang out with Grant Cardone, when I was doing Cardone U in, 2014, I did that for about 6 years. He would always say, look, you got to work real hard at whatever you do, stack that money, then get that money working for you. And then once you got a nice little drip coming off of that money, have that money buy one more asset that gives a drip. Now, once the asset over here that came from an asset is giving you a drip, he calls that your go stupid money. He's like, that's where you're going to go get all your rapper chains. That's where you're going to pay for your mistress. That's where all the silly money comes from, because it's not going anywhere. And it's okay if people want to live lavish, crazy lifestyles. That's not necessarily me. I like getting on a private jet here and there when I'm invited on one, or when it's just really affordable. I'm hopping on a PJ. Outside of that, I'm not a car guy. I'm not a watch guy. I'm not really wearing some crazy brand just because people in Europe think it's cool. I have my own identity and my own idea of style and my own worth, and I never want to be the guy that is walking around wearing his net worth. That's not fly to me.
I was just thinking about this morning, actually, because like when you start talking about branding, there's so many ways to do that. And when I think about how my rap vehicles, like what that's gonna be, like what that's gonna look like, and then 9 times out of 10 wearing some bullseye
swag
is 9 times out of 10 I'm something on me is bullseye consulting. So
right.
That's all a part of it, because I've had my years of spending a lot of money on clothes and shoes. I still kind of got a little thing for shoes. A lot of years having the wrong values or prioritizing the wrong things And now when I'm getting the crazy lease, it's going to be wrapped. And how I think about the value of that vehicle is what it's bringing back to my business. And that's truly how I look at it. It's not a, ooh, I'm about to be like, it ain't that type of thing. It's like, I truly, I care about, all right, when people see the car, are they scanning the QR code? When they see the car,
Mm-hmm.
is it registering in their mind? Is the brand registering in their mind so that when they see the same brand on their social media feed, it connects and they like, oh, I just saw that car. Like, that's what I care about, right? Like, none of that other stuff.
I
No,
can
we
dig it.
talking R
I can dig
O
it.
I.
ROI. I was about to say you talking about leverage, and I'm all about it.
Right.
I don't know if you're familiar with the good brother Marvin Mitchell in the financial game. Really, really good brother from St. Louis. He is actually inducted in the Financial Hall of Fame. Like, there's one for financial advisors too. I was like, finally, my jump shot didn't get me to the league. So now, I'm just putting these assets out there for clients. So I guess I got another way to make it. But I bring him up because I was talking to him at a conference, and he went out and bought a Lamborghini. And he's like, I feel like it's time to let people know that I'm really making this money, because he doesn't dress crazy. He wasn't driving anything crazy. He had a few nice properties that were cash flowing for him, multi-million-dollar home in Georgia, another home in St. Louis. But he went out and got this Lamborghini Aventador, and his first month, I think he made an additional 50 grand. No, it had to be more than that. It might have been 500 grand. Let's put another zero on there. He made an additional 500 grand because he had this really, really exquisite VIP mentorship experience. And as you and I know, we've spent some bread to get where we are. Some of these things are 10, 20, 30, $50,000, to be with the number one cat in that lane. You got to make that sacrifice. You got to believe in yourself enough to know that once you get that knowledge, you're going to make that money tenfold or 50-fold or 1,000-fold. So he gets this car, and he made enough to buy the car twice the first month, because his marketing plan, his systems, the way he had it, the way he was driving around with it, it was brilliant. It was brilliant the way that he played it. So just in my own life, I've seen it work. So I can't wait to see you with the wrap vehicles. I'm still here holding out for a certain company I won't name yet, because I don't love them right now. They haven't accepted any of my big deals. But once they do accept one of these, they're gonna buy me like a Mercedes AMG. And I've been holding out on, look, I'm gonna have a beautiful vehicle on somebody else's dime. So
Right.
we're gonna see how much longer I push what I'm pushing.
Right.
Otherwise, I'm gonna do an amazing lease myself in the business name and
Mm-hmm.
be able to write all of it off. I know a lot of people sleep on leases, but if you have a business, it's the best way to go. As long as you get your mileage right, everything else is taken care of. You just got to put gas in the car.
The first vehicle I get will be a lease because the Sprinter van, that'll be something that we own. But the cars that we drive, yeah, no, those all gonna be leases. Because when I stationed in Germany, it was a whole different kind of experience for me to walk into the BMW dealership. I picked up the magazine and I literally ordered my car custom, like everything, every piece of it. I ordered custom and had that car delivered to me. And I still remember that feeling. Like I will have that car forever, God willing. Because again, I remember how it felt to order it. And I remember how it felt when I got the notification that it had been built and then that it was getting delivered and then actually picking it up. And that's my baby. But that's because of those experiences. Cars, like, I don't give a flying fuck, because drive them off the lot and they immediately depreciate unless you got one of them ones, and it's only a few of them ones.
Right.
For me, like I said, the value of that car is going to be what it bring back for me. So I love that it got 500K back in a month. Okay, that makes sense. That squares in my mind. I'll go drop that for that. I'll go drop that. That makes
Right.
sense. That's good business.
And he leased it. I was like, this boy is too cold with it, man. Cooking with hot fish grease.
We're going to have some fly leases just because I understand the value of the attention that it creates.
It does. And it's, whether fortunate or unfortunate, there are plenty of men and women on this earth that will do business with you because of the watch that you're wearing, the shoes that you're wearing, or the car that you drive.
Yep.
And so you talked about the shoe piece a little bit. You know, I spend a little bit of money on my shoes, and they'll look and they'll see that they're quality. Like, yep, that's Italian leather. Yep, I dropped a little money on that. I dropped a little money on this watch. And they're quality pieces that I take care of, for sure. But you will never see me in the, what do they call it, the stealth wealth fit, where it looks like a normal Hanes shirt, but it costs $14,000 because of some crazy process. You can get out of here with that. Or, you know, I got a friend who, back when I used to go to this establishment called Cowboys, back in the day, in my youth, I'd be in there, and I see him come in, and he's wearing all this Louis Vuitton stuff, and he comes up, dap him up, he starts telling me about everything he's got on. He's like, bro, I'm wearing about 5K right now. I'm in the building. And in my head, I'm like, we're in the same building. Everything I'm wearing came from Ross. But the funniest part, to land this plane on this story, is a little bit later. You know, I'm having drinks, I'm having fun, you know, going around talking to people. And this guy is like, hey, man, can you let me hold $10 so I can get a drink? And I was like, you mean you just can't put your fit up there and they just give you a drink? Don't they know you wearing 5K? And he didn't like that, but I laughed for 2 hours.
No, it's real. Because, like, where are your priorities at?
And I hope he carried that with him. Now he's a grown man. He's married. He's a professional. He actually has a small business now. He has a blue-collar business. But, man, that man wasn't getting no $10 out of me.
The reality is, man, when it comes to all that, it's got to be in you, not on you. When it's in you, it don't matter what you're wearing. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's going to come out. I have fits that I spent the minimum on them, like minimum.
Mm-hmm.
It ain't about what I spent on it. It's how I put it together, and it's how I walk in the room in it, and the accessories too. You know, that thing, I got a little piece of it too. But people be getting it wrong. It's like, it's always funny to see somebody that they got that shit on, but it's wrong. Like, they look out of place. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like,
you can see that it's like a manifestation of their lack of self-confidence.
Right.
You went and bought all this crazy stuff because you don't even rock with you.
Right. That part.
I've been at, and I'm sure you've seen this happen before, when you're at a business pitch fest and someone's pitching their clothing line. And I was at one, and there were some big name rappers and R&B artists, a whole bunch of people there. From the culture, you know, allegedly. I digress. The person, he gets up there and he starts talking about his clothing brand. And he's like, yo, we're taking over streetwear. We're doing this, blah, 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 blah. His presentation was pretty smooth, but they asked him one question. They're like, so do you really believe in your brand and people could wear it anywhere at any time, wear it for something professional, this and that? He's like, yeah, most definitely. They should have the confidence to be able to wear this in the boardroom. as well as in the hottest club. And they're like, well, what are you wearing right now? And he describes it. He's like, oh, this is Gucci. It's from this collection. Da 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 da. I paired it with this. This is Fendi.
Right.
This
Right.
is Prada. And then the shoes are Pucci, not to be confused with Gucci. They're like, okay. And they were like, pass, you know. And he's like, what do you mean pass? They're like, you didn't even wear your own clothes here. You don't
Right.
even rock with you. And I'm sure he went home with an existential crisis where his Pucci, his Prada, everything else under the sun, like you said, it's not on you, it's in you. And speaking of what's in you, I'm wondering what's been on your mind over the last few weeks in this political climate. What do you think's jumped out to you the most?
For me, it's only one thing that really stands out to me, and that was Charlie Kirk's passing. I truly believe, and this is 40-year-old brain. No one should lose their life that way or over an opinion that they have or have communicated. The flip side of that, though, is so I'm from Hampton, Virginia, born and raised.
Mm-hmm.
And when I grew up, I understood that there was always an imminent threat of me being punched in my face or worse for the things that came out of my mouth. That's my condition. Like, I understand that. Like, I watched things happen to people for words that were exchanged. So when I'm talking to my daughter about how she navigates this world, it's always in the context of there's how we would like the world to be, and then there's how the world is.
Yes.
And we have to have a balance between that. I just understand that I have a freedom to say whatever that I want to say, but I am not free from the consequences that comes from whatever I choose to say.
That's right.
That's just that's how I was raised. Like, that's how I've seen the world to operate. That's how I understand the world to operate. So it's an interesting dynamic to watch the responses, because this is like when certain things are detrimental to the existence of groups of people, it invokes raw emotions. And anytime that someone is making an emotional decision, it's probably not going to be their best decision. So with certain inflammatory positions, it increases the odds of something less than desirable.
Favorable happening. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. I've always thought, especially after reading John C. Maxwell's, one of his last books, I'm sure he's wrote 3 since I bought this book because he's a machine.
Right.
I look at him as the gold standard of leadership. He's incredible, at least from academia, you know. But his book, which is called High Road, is the first time he really starts addressing politics, because he's avoided it his whole life. Even when he tells people, hey, I'm a Christian, I'm not here to change your faith or what you do, but I wouldn't be transparent if I didn't tell you what I'm doing. And then he goes on, and it's all leadership, communication, that sort of matter. But he makes some really, really, really just pungent statements where it's a line in the sand. He's saying, look, if you are a polarizer of people, if you are separating people and pushing them further apart, and you're helping accelerate that, if you are a person that helps someone feel that they have fear and terror and rage when there aren't really reasons to have those emotions, then you can call yourself a lot of things, but you can't call yourself a leader. And you are a destroyer of the melting pot culture that we have here in America. And if you're in another country, you are destructive to the fabric of your own country coming together and creating synergy. And I remember when I first read that, you know, I'm paraphrasing, I was like, damn, like they got my boy John mad. John shooting from the hip. I know people might be listening to this like, wow, that didn't sound that bad. You don't know John C. Maxwell. He is the most PC loving guy ever. For him to make a statement like that was very, very powerful. And I definitely think whether people love or hate CK, you know, RIP to the dead. And I have so much empathy for his family, knowing that they're going to have to spend the rest of their life seeing his death pop up over and over again online randomly, whether it's a meme and people just being nasty and playing with the dead. They're going to have to live through that. I couldn't imagine it. However, you know, I don't necessarily have to, you know, love someone or their message or even think they're correct in their message and what they were doing to be like, yeah, it's terrible that you went out like that right in front of your family in a public setting. That's awful. That's absolutely awful. The I guess comedic part about this is Black Twitter, man, they had a field day with it. As soon as they found out the shooter was not black, you know, they were just like, hold on, you telling me a white man shot a white man and y'all are mad at black people? This is not our business. We're cleaning greens right now. This has nothing to do with us. God bless the dead. And, you know, they really ran with it. And I saw people saying, like, I don't understand how this is a joke to you. It's like, first of all, it isn't our culture because we've had so many generations of trauma that if we didn't know how to laugh through it, we wouldn't exist. We wouldn't make it through anything. So we laugh through our worst times, and that's what brings our community together. And it's okay if you don't understand that. Nobody's meaning any harm by you. And I can't say nobody, but I know me and mine, we're not meaning harm towards anyone.
Right.
But you know, it's definitely a spearhead and a spear point, and it kind of goes into, you know, I'm gonna go into my Ian mode real quick and talk a little bit about conspiracies. You know, there's all kind of different conspiracies about the shooter, the angle, how many shooters. I'm not going to touch that with a 10-foot pole. What I will talk about, though, is that we have an increasing monopolization of media. Now, Turning Point is a gigantic media company, and they are essentially the funding arm of the Republican Party. You know, they do around 85 to 90 million dollars a year, and all but maybe $5 million of that goes back into making materials and programs and whatnot to educate the youth on their opinion of how the world should work, how politics are, how policing should happen, how voting should happen, how you should think about people that don't look like you, pray like you, and all that kind of stuff, and their whole ideology. That is a pretty substantial amount of information to be putting out. You know, that's to the level that we would call, you know, when I was in school, I had a couple journalism classes, we would call that propaganda. And I know some people get mad, but lots of things are propaganda. You know, if we think about the most effective marketers in business, it's propaganda. So it doesn't always have to be something heinous. Sometimes it is heinous, you know, when it's against people that are experiencing unfairness on a systemic level. Now, this happens, you know, his wife gives a very passionate speech, but it also sounds very marketing-y. It was kind of interesting. I talked to a few of my past professors about it. They're like, yeah, that kind of sounds like, you know, almost like when a new CEO is taking over. So, you know, that was different. And then at the same time, we see the entity that owns Warner Brothers to gobble up other entities. And they're looking to really bring it down from, I think maybe 5 years ago, man, maybe 10, there were 11 companies that ran the world as far as information and media. I believe right now there's 6, and folks, powers that be, are trying to get it down to 3.
And it's happening at a rapid pace. It's happening at a rapid pace, like right in front of us too.
Mm-hmm.
It is completely insane. And again, you know, going back to the origins of this as a concept, that's one of the pieces, because he who controls the media controls the minds of the people. That is the game. These consolidations that are happening at the corporate media level, and to your point, I won't touch on all of those conspiracy things with a 20-foot pole. Like I'm good, but understanding how America works as a capitalistic engine in most things in the United States, when you find out what really is going on. So
Yes, sir.
um
That money
regardless,
trail.
yeah. Regardless of any of that, to your point, definite rest in peace to him, because like I said, no one deserves that. His kids saw it, even though they probably didn't know what they were seeing. Like his kids were there, and
Mm-hmm.
they are always going to be able to replay that, and people are always going to remind them. So it's like that is an absolute tragedy. So I had this conversation with my baby girl. I asked her, "What's your definition of a martyr?" And we went through the whole textbook definition. And
Mm-hmm.
the martyrdom that surrounds his passing is revealing in a lot of ways, because of a lot of the messaging that was perpetuated. So to your point, the messaging, propaganda, you know,
Yeah.
they're all in the same kind of sphere. And a lot of that, again, was harmful and dangerous to large segments of the United States population. So the idea that that would be hailed as something to aspire and to hold up and to recognize now as a federal, and in short order, like a national day now, in short order, it has already been established, is just kind of, again, revealing. As someone that wore the uniform to defend this country against all enemies, foreign and domestic, when I watched January 6th happen on television,
Mm-hmm.
and uh, I've continued to see the revisionist history being applied to that. That struck me as very revealing, and there hasn't been anything as revealing about how the United States operates since January 6th than this particular situation.
You know, the interesting thing about that, that came very close to home for me because I have a client who reached out to me. She's like, "Hey, I want to update our cash value life insurance. We've been working with this guy up in this city, and we're done with him. We don't want to be a part of their team anymore. We don't like the way they run business. We'd love to rewrite." I'm like, "All right, let's do it. Take care of the wife." I was like, "All right, are we going to get your husband?" She's like, "Yes, but here's the thing. So he is currently incarcerated." And I was like, "Oh, is it a felony?" Because life insurance is void with a felony. So if you die while committing a felony, it does not pay out. I know a lot of black people try to say any crime and they try to talk you out of getting life insurance. It's only a felony. So even a misdemeanor, you know, there are good chances that it would still pay out to your loved ones or your church or whoever. Anyways, before digressing, I'm like, okay, what type of crime did he commit? You know, what's the sentencing? She's like, well, he hasn't been sentenced yet, but he was one of the insurrectionists on January 6th. I'm like, oh, snap, that's crazy. You know, when it's someone that you had a beer with and whatnot. And, you know, now that he's been pardoned and whatnot, it's like it never happened. So he can go ahead, he can get his policy, he can do anything that he wants to do at this point in time. But I was just blown away. I was like, wow, you know, someone who is well to do, a business owner, making great money, Not just good money, great money. I'm talking about he's making more than the president. Maybe not this president, but he's making more than the presidential salary. You know, would be so drawn by someone's vision that he would do that. Crazy, run into the Capitol building. You know, so as we're bringing this thing to a landing here, it definitely our asset of the day was intellectual property by means of an SOP. Do you have any final thoughts to wrap this up?
When it comes to the times that we live in now, for those of us who have made the conscious decision to hop off of that hamster wheel that would have otherwise fed us into the corporate, the even bigger hamster wheel, is an inherent responsibility right now to grow that asset, that business, that idea. It is an inherent responsibility to make that business asset employ more people, able to support nonprofit organizations that directly support the communities in which we live. It is an inherent responsibility to be profitable as a business owner these days. It is a civic responsibility as a business owner to be profitable. And for those of us that have business ambitions that only go as far as how it provides for us and our families, it ain't big enough. These times are too dire.
Woo! You gave me a chill saying that because I feel that so deeply. I messaged a gal today. You have no idea how in sync we are, my brother. I met today that I met in Atlanta, who is a broker for Morgan Stanley. And she was asking why I did what I do. And, you know, I had Patrick there with me, who's one of my guys that I've hired and trained in this business. And she's like, oh, this is how you make your money. This is how you do it because you care about you. It's like, well, of course I care about me. I have interest in self for sure, but I have interest in others as well. And I reached out to her because she was telling me, you know, she wants to climb the ladder there. She wants to be an analyst and she wants to build wealth. And she trades. So she's really, really locked in right now on building wealth. But my message to her today was like, you know, I was thinking about you. She trades something called QQQ from Invesco. And, you know, Invesco was at InvestFest. So I was like, you know, I was thinking about you and your goals, your aspirations, and I know you're going to get those. But I just want to let you know that if your dream is not big enough to have other people's dreams manifest inside of it and come to fruition, it's too small and you're limiting yourself. And I know that shook her up. So like you said, these are dire times and it absolutely is our civic duty. You know, ask not what these jobs can do for you, but what you can do to create jobs.
Bars. Another incredible episode of the Asset Class. Thank you for joining us.